Welcome to episode number 2 of the Free Your Mind podcast. Today we're going to talk about the inside out understanding and how that changed my life and then consequently changed my clients' lives. I was someone who probably didn't follow the traditional path as you established on the first episode. And it's worth adding, actually, at this point, that these episodes are designed to be linear in the sense that we're going to go on a journey together throughout this. So starting at 1, and the more we progress into the conversation, I'm going to take you through certain, almost like you're a client, where we're going to have certain conversations that take you down certain paths. And the further we get into this together, the deeper those conversations can become, the more complex they can become. Well, not complex, that's not the right word. But I guess what I'm saying is if you are new to this and you come in at episode 50, then it might be a little bit like hard to grasp. Whereas if you start at the beginning, you're going to go on that journey. Now, for others, you could be at a point where the first conversations we're having are actually quite, more surface level. And you might be thinking, I want something deeper than this, and it might just be a reminder of the basics. But if that's you, then stick with this because we're gonna go down a few different places. And I can't predict where we're gonna go. I just have ideas of the same conversations that I've had again and again and again and again with clients and myself, and for all the years of study. But back onto my point that most people would probably like to imagine that my journey went from suffering, discovering personal development and, neuroscience and psychology and all of that stuff, and then transforming, my life, transforming my world, my relationships, my health, my happiness, my success. But as you would have established on the last podcast, I learned more and more and more and more. But yet it wasn't really helping. It was helping to some degree, and it was making minor differences, and I was feeling different, and I was more aware of certain things, but actually I plummeted before I then kind of arose again. And it's because it was the problem with that. And if you're in a similar profession to me, then you might get this. It's like the more you know, it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the people that know the least think they know the most, and they think they're really good. So if you look at young people, people new to an industry, they have a kind of overinflated ego, an overinflated sense of how good they are, how simple things are, and call it beginner's luck, call it naivety, call it the Dunning-Kruger effect. What you'll find is the more you know about a subject and the more experience you have, often the more you feel like you haven't got a fucking clue what you're doing. You go, some of my clients, are running these big businesses and they're successful and they're in charge of, hundreds of staff or tens of staff or whatever it is for them. And they're like, I haven't got a fucking clue what I'm doing, And that's not completely true, but it's just started to look that way to them. It started to feel that way to them. And the reason I'm saying this is it was like I'm saying, shit, I should know better. I started to feel like a fraud because I should know better. I should be changing my life because that's what's been promised from doing all of these different courses and neuroscience and meditation and reading books. And yet I felt more fucked up than ever. And just even more aware of my fuck-ups than ever. Ignorance was bliss. I kind of wanted to almost go back there, but I couldn't. I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. So it all become more and more and more complex. And there are people, you've only got to have a little look at life coaches and look around the personal development world, to see there are a lot of people, it's the blind leading the blind. It's the same in any industry, People are just doing the best, and I don't mean this in a bad way. They're just doing the best that they can do based on what the level of consciousness that they have. They're doing the best that they can do based on what they've seen at that point, the same as what I was doing, I know I'd seen some changes, and I knew my life was getting better, and I wanted to share that. I just hadn't seen what I hadn't seen. But yeah, it got more and more complex. And that's when I started to go, fuck, do I really know anything here? what do I know? The only thing that kept me going was because I was getting other people results. Their lives were changing. And sometimes I was like, well, this isn't fair. Like, their lives are changing and mine isn't. It's changing, but not as good as theirs. I need to coach myself somehow. Like, and it just got more and more and more complex. But when you come through the complexity, you often find the simplicity. And that is where I've arrived at. And when I say arrived, please do not mistake that to mean that I am somehow amazing and the finished article and I am the best I'll ever be. Because I will listen back to this podcast in a year's time and think it was shit. You know, I will look back at last week and think I was shit. Not from a self-depreciating place, but I see that as growth. You know, if you're on this growth cycle, you'll always be looking back at what you thought you knew and what you believed to be true. And the quicker that is happening, the quicker you'll be growing. The more you're looking back and going, oh my God, last week I thought this, but now I see this. That's generally a good sign to me. And my point is, I'm not here to say I have all the answers and I am the best in the world, you know, because I just don't think that there is ever an end point to life. I don't believe we just go, oh, I'm fixed, you know. I had clients come to me and they'd work with me for 12 weeks and then I'd be like, cool, like, where do we go from here, you know? Most of my clients carry on. They never stop. But for these few people, they'd be like, well, I'm fixed now. I'm done. You know, cheers, mate. You've changed my life. It's all great. And it's like, yeah, this is going to crash and burn. Not saying they have to work with me for the rest of their life, but keep looking in this direction. Replace me with audiobooks or books or other coaches or your own study, or you can't just drop it, you know, like the gym. If you can't just get in shape and then leave and go, yeah, I've got a six-pack now and I'm ripped, you know, because you atrophy, you start to regress, you start to forget why you enjoyed the gym in the first place. You forget why you cared about going in the first place. That's why people yo-yo. Because they get out of shape, they get fat, they hate the pain they're in because they feel fat and their clothes feel shit. They then do something about it from that place of pain. They get in shape or start to get in some shape. They forget the pain they was in that made them want to do it in the first place. They start to feel comfortable and they go, I don't really want to go to the gym. I feel all right at the moment. And then the cycle continues. You know, I feel all right at the moment turns into, I feel fucking fat again. And they repeat the cycle. And the same is true with this. You know, you just keep looking in this direction. Keep listening to people. Keep listening to podcasts. Keep listening to books. Keep listening to... And what you'll start to see is the more you fall in love with the process, the more you enjoy it, the more you'll realize that we are all saying the same thing, whether it's Buddha, whether it's like the Dalai Lama, whether it's, you know, Eckhart Tolle, whether it is, you know, neuroscientists, whether it is, you know... anyone really that's enlightened on some level, whatever that means, you'll find they're all saying the same thing. They're all pointing to the same things. They're just finding different words of saying it, and they're just relaying it in a way that makes sense to them at that point. And I guess that's what I'm doing too. So, gone off track a little bit, and you'll get used to that. But coming back onto track for now, my point here is that over the duration of the next... well, forever maybe. I don't know how long this is going to go on for, but I'm going to keep talking all the while that I love talking about it and all the while I see it changing people's lives and my life. And I will be evolving throughout this the same way that you may be if you stick around, you know. So therefore, that's why the conversations unfold as they do. And I would very much like to shortcut, in quotes, your journey, because you don't need to go through all of the complexity to get to the simplicity like I did, because I kind of done that for you. And I don't believe in shortcuts, but what I do believe is I can try to aim to the right places. You know, I can point to the right places, point in the right directions of where you need to look, and the insights that may provoke some thoughts, and where to look within yourself in order to find the answers. So it is my intention that this speeds things up for you. So having said all of that, there are certain principles that I've come across, certain ways of living that I've come across that seem to shortcut so much of the complexity that seems to surround personal growth, personal development, stress, anxiety, worry, depression. It is just so much more complex, or it appears so much more complex than it actually is. You know, the solution, or the solutions, there's a quote by Einstein. I really wish I knew what the quote was, actually. It's something about when the solutions, when found, will be simple. And you may have seen that. Like, if you look to areas of your life where you really do well, you may see how simple it looks to you. Like, as examples, one of the common complaints with my clients are they do really well, business usually, and other areas too, but business is usually where they excel at. And they will give their advice to their friends and people that have asked for help. And then they come to me and they're like, you know, I tell them what to do. I tell them exactly how to do it. You know, I can lay out a blueprint on how to essentially have the exact same life I've got, and yet they don't fucking do it. And it's fascinating because I'm like, that's the nature of humans. Like, you see it simply. You have the insights and the understanding to see it the way you see it. And because you see it so simply, you assume everyone else does. But to other people, it looks complex. To other people, they're missing the understanding. They're missing the insights. They're missing the thought processes. They're missing the habits. There's so much more to it for them. Otherwise, they would just pick up a blueprint and go, right, step one, this, and this. I actually find that my clients that struggle the most in terms of business are actually often the most intelligent. And some of the ones that are actually less intelligent, if you look kind of academically, are the ones that do the best because they don't overthink it. They don't overcomplicate it. They just, someone says, do this, and they go, all right, and they go do it. And I'm like, all right, cool. You know, whereas people that have the habit of overthinking or often the ones that are the most analytical and intelligent are trying to analyze the whole plan before they've even began and looked at, you know, and this, I'm that person, by the way, you know, so I'm not pointing fingers here. If I am, I'm pointing at myself. You know, you tell me 10 steps and I've already analyzed about 4,000 different steps and 4,000 different variations and conflicts within the steps. And I've got so overwhelmed and confused that the 10 steps has turned into 100 steps. And I've looked at what everyone else is doing, listened to 500 different opinions on how I should do it. And now I've got 6,000 steps where each step is contradicting the next. And I'm going, I don't fucking know. So, which is, again, something we'll talk about. My point here is the areas in your life where you find the simplicity, where you find the simplicity. There's no better way of saying it. The areas that you see as simple, you've usually gone through the complexity in order to find the simplicity, and you see things the way that you do, and that helps you. The areas you struggle in might be the areas that seem more complex. There's more conflict. There's more unanswered questions in your head that you just don't seem to find answers for. You might find yourself looking to other people to help you. Someone tell me what to do, or, you know, Gary Vee says this, or Grant Cardone says that, or Ty Lopez says this, or any other number of, you know, social media gurus are telling me this, but yet they're all telling me different things, and now I'm even more confused than ever. So we're going to talk to that as well. We're going to talk to the nature of thought and how it restricts us, how it slows us down, how it creates emotions that actually stop us from being, doing, and having all the things we want, and also how it serves us when used, you know, in a useful way. We're also going to look at the nature of creativity and inspiration and deeper mind, you know, the innate intelligence behind life. And then finally, we're going to look at consciousness. Like, why are you even in this conversation with me? How do you even understand what I'm saying? Why is it that you see the nature of thinking and you see that you're thinking and you see life a certain way, but you might be frustrated because people around you just don't seem to get it? Your wife doesn't get it, or your parents don't get it, or your friends don't get it. Why do you see it this way? Why do you have the consciousness that you have in order to see what you see, but other people don't? And those are the key areas we're going to start to look at, and then specifically how they apply. So I think that's probably enough for today. It's, relatively short and sweet. And I want these to be short and sweet. I want these to be digestible. I want you to be able to listen to this whilst taking a shit or driving the car or I don't know what you're doing, just sitting and chilling for a bit. And you can binge watch. No, you can't do that. You can binge listen if you want. But I just like small digestible chunks. And that's how I'm going to deliver this. Like little nuggets. Little mind vitamins. I've heard the expression before. So anyway, I appreciate if you're back here again for episode number 2. I appreciate it, and I look forward to going on the journey together. That's what we're doing here. We're turning to look at the world together. I see this as a conversation. I'm not preaching. I'm not telling you that I'm a god and you don't know what you're doing. It's just a co-creation. It's a conversation. And there's a certain magic to that. So anyway, I appreciate you being here. I hope you got something from that. By all means, contact me. Let me know if you have any questions that you want me to answer. Fantastic. If things are changing as a result of some of the insights, that's fantastic. Or if you just want to lurk in the background, then you're of course welcome to do that too. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks again. Take it easy. Bye.